pretty small group, and now there's too many people I can't even They're gonna go to the bathroom place for bathroom break. Sorry.
Uh-oh.
We're gonna see Miss Duvall.
Oh,
She's coming.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for coming. My name is Julie Brixey. I'm a state representative here in the greater Lansing area. I'm a mom and I'm a grandma. I'm here for the Harris campaign's Reproductive Week of Action because one thing is clear ahead of the November election. Abortion is on the ballot in Michigan and across the United States of America. We all remember the day that Roe versus Wade fell. It was a day that millions of women across the country lost the right to choose what happens to their own bodies. It was the day that also galvanized thousands of women and families across Michigan to show up to the polls in 2022 and cast their vote for reproductive freedom candidates up and down the ballot. But outside of Michigan, more than 1 in 3 women of reproductive age live in a state with an abortion ban. And there's one person to blame for that, Donald Trump. He said it himself. He's the reason for the overturning of Roe versus Wade. As of yesterday, 22 abortion bans are now in effect across our nation. But this is just the beginning for Trump. He's already promised to lead the charge in banning abortion nationwide. His Project 2025 agenda includes banning abortion in all 50 states. He even said he's looking at rolling back access to birth control. So I don't know about anybody else, but here in Michigan, when I heard the news, I'm a grandma, I'm a mom, and it is absolutely horrendous that my granddaughter has fewer reproductive rights than I did when I was her age, and my children. Not only is Trump's vice presidential pick a Buckeye, he's just as anti-abortion as Trump himself, if not worse. He's admitted that he'd like abortion to be illegal nationally, and his campaign website said he supports eliminating abortion. He doesn't even believe in exceptions for rape or incest. And he was caught saying that the federal government might need to take action to prevent women from crossing state lines for an abortion. He called for the Department of Justice to use a law from the 1800s to prosecute doctors and restrict access to medication abortion. Medication abortion is used for more than half of abortions in Michigan. Let me be clear. Here in Michigan, our reproductive rights are under attack. It doesn't matter that we voted overwhelmingly to protect our right to an abortion, because any federal policy Trump and Vance push for would supersede state protections. The Trump-Vance Project 2025 agenda would override our state constitution ban on abortion. So the only way to stop Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and their Project 2025 agenda is to elect Vice President Kamala Harris as our next president. She knows that these decisions are private and between families and their doctors only. It's not up to the government to tell its citizens what to do with their bodies. From her time as Attorney General to a U.S. Senator and now as Vice President, Kamala Harris has been an unequivocal champion for reproductive freedom. It's Kamala Harris who worked to keep reproductive health care providers safe when she was Attorney General. And it's Kamala Harris who sounded the alarm on then Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh when she was a senator. As our presumptive nominee, Kamala Harris has already promised to sign Roe versus Wade protections into law if she becomes president. We can't stand by and let Trump and Vance turn back the clock on our rights. We refuse to go back. We must elect Kamala Harris this November. Now, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague from the 74th, Representative Kara Hope.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As my colleague said, I'm Kara Hope. I represent the South Lansing and Holt, so very nearby. I'm so excited to be standing here with my colleague from the House, my colleague from the Senate, or the Congress. Okay, yeah, I gave her a demotion to the Senate. Sorry about that. I'm here because I know in this election there are two choices on the ballot. On the one hand, we have Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, who are anti-abortion extremists. Trump is the reason we lost the right to an abortion. To this day, he takes credit for overturning Roe versus Wade. J.D. Vance does not even believe in exceptions for rape or incest, and he's called for a national ban. These are two men that repeatedly admit that they will do everything they can to ban abortion for millions across the country. Their Project 2025 is like something out of The Handmaid's Tale. It calls for a ban on abortion and restricting access to contraception. And then it goes a step further by calling for the prosecution of healthcare providers that send or receive medication abortion in the mail. Their vision for America is an America that rolls back women's rights and drags us back, losing the progress we've made over the last century. J.D. Vance has actually said that he thinks that women should stay in violent marriages for the kids. On the other hand, we have Vice President Kamala Harris, who is a national champion for abortion rights. She's not backed down from the fight for reproductive rights. She's crisscrossing the country to stand side by side with healthcare providers and women like Hadley. She's led the administration's response to the overturning of Roe versus Wade, supporting President Biden's executive orders to protect reproductive health care access. Kamala Harris is the first vice president to visit an abortion clinic. In her own words, what Donald Trump and his allies have done is not just an attack on women's fundamental freedoms, it's an attack on the very foundation of our public health system. When we elect Kamala Harris, we're choosing an America that protects our fundamental freedoms, not an America that rips them away. Harris is working toward a future where our daughters have more rights than their mothers and grandmothers, not fewer. Vice President Harris is listening to us, not to ultra-conservative MAGA loyalists and extremists. And here in Michigan, we support the right to reproductive freedom. We put our trust in doctors, not MAGA politicians. I don't want J.D. Vance in the exam room with me. This November, voters will elect Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States because she's the only candidate on the ballot that has vowed to fight for our rights, not rip them away. And now it's my honor to introduce Congresswoman DeGette from Colorado.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to both of my colleagues from the Michigan legislature, the true warriors in the fields. We really appreciate all of the work we do and all of the work you do to protect people from Michigan having full range to health care that they need. I'm Congresswoman Diana DeGette from Colorado. I'm the co-chair of the Congressional Pro-Choice Caucus in the U.S. House of Representatives. As all of you know, just over 2 years ago, for the first time in our nation's history, the Supreme Court took away a freedom that had been granted to Americans and that millions of Americans had taken for granted, frankly, for over 50 years. This decision had immediate and devastating consequences. We've all heard the horror stories coming out of states like Texas, Ohio, Georgia, so many other places. Amanda Zurkowski, who was having a very much planned pregnancy, who began miscarrying and went to the emergency room where she was told that the doctors were afraid to give her the health care she needed because they were afraid that they would be criminally prosecuted. And they sent her home until she got sepsis and almost died. And she finally went back to the emergency room where she got the care she needed. But now, tragically, she may not be able to have children again. The 10-year-old girl in Ohio who was a rape victim and who had to be taken by her family across state lines to get the medical care that she needed. And then the Ohio Attorney General said that they were going to try to prosecute the doctor across state lines who did that procedure. And people like Hadley Duvall, who you're going to hear about, or who you're going to hear from in just a minute, these are real people. These are real circumstances that happen to them. And these are real things that happen to them because Donald Trump appointed 3 Supreme Court justices who took away people's freedom to have the medical care they needed, and that includes abortion. Since Dobbs was decided just over 2 years ago, 22 states have restricted or removed people's ability to have the health care they need. That includes Iowa, who just yesterday, I guess in honor of my birthday, which was yesterday, took away people's rights to have abortions at 6 weeks, a time before most people know that they are even pregnant. States have been trying to criminalize abortions, not just for patients, but for doctors who are trying to give people the medical care that they need. States like Texas are trying to make it a crime for residents of their state to go to other states to get their medical care. On and on and on. Donald Trump has said that he thinks it would be okay to ban in vitro fertilization, which of course is a way so many families have been able to make their reproductive decisions to have the families they need. Let's make no mistake about it. The goal of the Trump-Vance ticket is to ban abortion at the federal level. And when they say it, you should believe it. Let's talk for a minute about J.D. Vance, although we could probably talk about J.D. Vance for about an hour and his abortion views. As you heard, J.D. Vance said said about abortion, rape means two wrongs don't make a right. Think about that for a minute. J.D. Vance has opposed all abortions, and he has said that abortion should be banned at the national level. Trump's Project 2025, which has been very much in the press lately, Trump's Project 2025 would ban mifepristone, which is the drug that most people use, as you heard, in Michigan and around the country to get this safe medical procedure. They would also take steps that could even ban IVF. So as I said, I'm the co-chair of the pro-choice caucus in Congress. And I was watching this because I saw how many of my colleagues in Congress would take steps as extreme as Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. I'll give you one example. I realized a couple of months ago that 187 House Republicans, which is 86% of the House Republican Conference, have supported bills that would define people as the moment a sperm and an egg meets at conception. That would be a person. If those bills went into effect, what that would mean is that all abortions would be banned, even in cases of rape, incest, or the life and health of the mother. It would mean in vitro fertilization would be banned. It would mean many common forms of birth control would mean that some forms of stem cell research that are providing the hopes for cures would be banned. I don't think anybody should assume that this would not happen under a Trump-Vance administration, because they've said that they want to do it. And so I think we have to be very, very afraid, but we also have to be very, very committed to electing Kamala Harris President of the United States. I have worked closely with Vice President Harris and my colleagues on the pro-choice caucus ever since the Dobbs decision. She is committed. She is going to make sure that we protect every American's freedom to get the health care they need. In my many meetings with her and her team at the White House, in our conversations with them, we have worked closely so that the Harris-Biden administration has been able to do what they can within the limits of the current law. They've passed 3 executive orders to protect people's ability to get access to the service they needed. They've done 1 executive order which would guarantee access to the abortion medications that are so important to people, and to making sure that they can get them in every state where it's legal. They've done an executive order to make sure our military personnel can get the services that they need. And they have done an executive order to make sure, this sounds kind of crazy, we'd have to say this in 2024, but they passed an executive order to make sure everybody can get birth control in this country. I have to tell you, elections have consequences. And the consequence of this election, as you heard from my colleagues from the state legislature, is going to have repercussions for generations to come, for my 2 daughters and for my granddaughter Eva. And so we have to work every day. It's 98 days now until the election. We have to work every day to make sure that we protect the freedom of every American to have the health care they need. And when President Harris is sworn into office in January, one of the very first things that she's going to do is make sure that we pass legislation at the national level, which will help us, which will preserve the rights that we had in Roe versus Wade. And I will be honored and deeply grateful to have that happen and to help in that effort. With that, I want to introduce the really courageous Hadley Duvall, who has some important personal things to share with us. Hadley?
My name is Hadley Duvall, and I'm honored to be here today in Michigan as we work to elect a strong, brilliant, and unapologetic leader for reproductive freedom and our fundamental rights, Vice President Kamala Harris. This election will be the most impactful election of our entire lives. We have a choice this November between Vice President Kamala Harris, who will restore our reproductive freedom and protect our rights, or Donald Trump, who will enact his dangerous Project 2025 agenda that would strip women of their reproductive freedom in all 50 states. And that is just the beginning. So I'm not going to sit this fight out, because when Donald Trump brags about overturning Roe, it is very personal. I'm from Kentucky, where because of Donald Trump, an extreme abortion ban is now in place, and it has no exceptions for victims of rape or incest. But from the time I was 5 years old, I was sexually abused by my stepfather at the time. When I was 12, he impregnated me. And I remember standing in my bathroom as a 12-year-old girl holding on to a pregnancy test and feeling so deeply afraid, wondering what I was missing in language arts class that I had just been checked out of. And the only thing that gave me any type of peace were the words, "You have options," which are some of the first words I heard after seeing a positive pregnancy test at 12 years old. I was too young to really understand what was happening, but hearing that there were options, that was the only thing I could hold on to. But now, unfortunately, women and girls, they don't even have that to hold on to. They have no options. And that's all because of Donald Trump. Now I'm 22, and I'm a first-generation college graduate. I'm living a life that I used to pray for. I'm now able to use my voice and advocate for our rights. And that's what Roe used to give people in my situation. The opportunity to take your power back. A choice. Throughout this journey, I've discovered a resilience I never knew existed. I learned that empowerment is not about forgetting the trauma, but about creating a light from survival and strength. So to every survivor listening today, know that you are not alone, and you never will be. Your pain is so valid, and your courage is inspiring. And together, we will transform our experiences into a powerful force for change. And this is just the start. But doing that takes all of us. And that's why we are here today. We are coming together because there is too much at stake. Trump brags about overturning Roe v. Wade. He is proudly responsible for each and every one of the cruel abortion bans across the country, including the one that I live in my home state, Kentucky. He's called them a beautiful thing to watch. They don't believe women and girls in my situation should have options. I would like to ask him, what is so beautiful about telling a 12-year-old girl that she must have the baby of her stepfather who raped her? To tell a girl who has already been robbed of her childhood that she will be robbed of her future too. That is unthinkable. Yet, because of Donald Trump, this is a reality in many states across the country. And if you think he will stop here, you haven't been paying attention. We've heard of Project 2025. The extreme and dangerous blueprint for a second Trump term with detailed plans to ban abortion in all 50 states without the help of Congress. Project 2025 even includes plans to prosecute doctors for sending or receiving medication abortion in the mail. That's something that Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, has demanded the Department of Justice to do. But Project 2025 does so much more. It would take away checks and balances and give Trump unprecedented power. It would restrict our access to birth control. It would roll back protections for the LGBTQ+ community and use government programs to promote a model of marriage that does not include them. It would rip away environmental protections and the Department of Education. It would end student loan forgiveness. This is just a few of the things that are at stake. It took me time to find my voice, and it's still not always easy to share my story. I spoke out for the first time publicly the day after Trump overturned Roe. I was shocked to see how many people in my life didn't understand how devastating that decision was for women and girls like me. So I shared my thoughts to Facebook. I hit post and I threw my phone across the room, very terrified. But to this day, it is the most important thing I've ever done. And since then, I traveled my state and my country, fighting for our generation to get our reproductive rights back. That one post has led me to being here today with you all in Michigan. So the stakes of this election could not be higher for our choices, for our lives, and for our futures. I know that right now in Michigan, women and girls have their options, but no one in Michigan would be safe or have safe access to reproductive health care if Donald Trump makes his way back into the White House. For all of us, in all 50 states, our rights are on the line in this election. Everyone matters. Nobody should face this risk, no matter what state they live in. No matter what state I travel across, no matter what state line, I'm still a survivor in every state. The states being in charge is so not fair. You have the power to allow so many women and girls to have their choice, to take back their power, and you won't give it to them. So, when I walk into the voting booth on November 5th, I will vote for the younger me, who deserves so much better, who deserve the choices that she had. I will vote for the girls of America who society says are too young to have an opinion, but just old enough to suffer from the damage. I will vote for my future. I will vote for our future. And even if you don't stand with us, I will still vote for your future. I will proudly cast my vote for Vice President Kamala Harris. And I encourage everyone to do the same and to talk about doing the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Hadley. Questions? Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about what reproductive rights has been an important issue for the Democratic primary or Democratic Party this entire election cycle? So could you talk about what having a woman on the top of the ticket kind of can mean for that issue?
So after the Dobbs decision in 2022, suddenly people realized, so people who had taken it for granted that they had this freedom ever since Roe versus Wade woke up, and like Hadley says, they suddenly realized they did not have those rights anymore. In a number of states, overnight, abortion was banned. Overnight. And so we've seen this ever since 2022 in every election that has happened since then, whether it's a ballot initiative election, whether it's a special election for Congress, even in elections for judges, local city council members, abortion has become an issue. And the reason is because it is a fundamental freedom that has been, for the first time in our history, stripped away. Having Vice President Harris at the top of the ticket, she has been a fierce champion for abortion rights her entire career. So she can help articulate this, and she can help lead us forward. The fact that we're right here 1 week after she announced she was running shows the importance to the campaign and, frankly, the importance to America. Yeah.
Donald Trump has said that he's going to leave this issue up to the states, and there will be Michigan voters who will hear this and say, hey, I thought we protected abortion rights in 2022. Is Donald Trump lying to the public about this? How do you envision his administration overturning what Michigan voters have put?
I don't believe Donald Trump has the ability not to lie. Here's the man who said that he felt abortion should be illegal everywhere. Here's the man who said abortion should be left up to the states, but then when a state banned abortion, the next day said, well, I don't know, maybe that's too much. He'll say anything that he wants. he can read a poll just like the rest of us, and he knows the vast majority of Americans, Democrats, Republicans, and unaffiliated voters, believe people should have this choice. So he says this, as Hadley says, it doesn't, in the 22 states where abortion is illegal or severely restricted, over 20 million women now have lost their ability to make that healthcare decision. So under the current system with the Supreme Court, 20 million people of women of reproductive age now don't have that ability. So this idea of the states making the decision is a bad idea anyway, but don't believe Donald Trump when he says to you they're not going to pass a national ban on abortion, especially with J.D. Vance on the ticket. What I would say to you, don't listen to his lies. Listen to what he did. And what Donald Trump did was appoint the 3 justices to the Supreme Court who overturned Roe versus Wade. That's what we can expect to see from him.
This is about more than just a medical procedure too, and more than access to contraception. It's about women being equal to men, girls being equal to boys. There, as VP Harris did during her cross-exam of Justice, then not Justice Kavanaugh, there is no corollary. There's no comparison. So if we are restricted in that way, we're no longer full citizens. We're no longer equal. We lose that right. And, there are more women in this country than men. That's what's at stake. That's what is at stake.
Yeah.
To that point, though, the recent polling shows that 63% of people support some type of abortion. Isn't there a severe political risk for him going down this road?
You mean 63% support people's reproductive rights?
Right.
Yeah.
So isn't there a political risk for Donald Trump?
Can I answer that one?
Go ahead.
So there isn't, because have you listened to what he's saying? His plan is to not have anyone vote after this election. His plan is to become a dictator. He's admitted that he wants to be a dictator for a day, but his words recently about ending democracy, come out and vote, and then you won't have to ever vote again. That doesn't sound like the words of a man that is going to be worried about any kind of a poll or anything other than his own personal agenda. And we've seen what it is. We've got the receipts.
Yeah, let me also say, as we just said, Donald Trump, he can read a poll. He knows how to lie. But if you look at his Project 2025 and what his vice president says and what he has said, they are planning to ban abortion at a national level. I think you have to take them at that word. The other thing I'll tell you, being a member of the U.S. House of Representatives, the Republicans in Congress have also quietly stopped talking about abortion, even though 68% of them support complete ban on abortions, IVF, many forms of birth control, and stem cell research. But they've stopped talking about it. But in the appropriations bills that we've been voting on the last couple of months, every single one of those appropriations bills, including the VA construction bill, has restrictions on abortion. So it is going to be the goal of the Republicans, if they can take the White House, keep the House, and take the Senate, to make a national ban on abortion, without a doubt. Yeah.
Trump also says that Democrats won't rule out third trimester abortions. Why not? And isn't that kind of extremist?
That's just not a thing. And one thing we've learned since Dobbs is that the healthcare decisions that women are making with their doctors and their families, many of these issues late in pregnancy are from tragic circumstances, fetuses that are inviable and have died. The last thing you want is Republican politicians in Washington telling these families what they can do in these terrible, terrible situations. The one thing we've learned is that we need to trust Americans to have the freedom to make their own health care decisions. And that's what this is all about. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Okay. Thanks, everybody.